Lacey Stewart,
Finley Whitman,
Clarissa Sparks,
Jody Black,
Anaclet Tavares.
okay. All right, so I'm going to go first. I'm going to pull up my paper here. Okay. I'm here to address the topic of fatherlessness and the effects it has on society. Currently, over 20 million children are fatherless, and that number continues to grow. Statistics now show 1 out of every 4 American children don't live with their biological father. The percentage of children raised in fatherless homes has more than tripled from 8%, or almost 6 million children, in the year 1960 to 24.4%, or over 20 million children in 2012. This threat has not always been a problem. In the timeline of history, it's a recent development which started about 50 years ago and followed after the establishment of no-fault divorce. In the book Life Without Father, author Popany attributes the erosion of fatherhood to 2 causes: the divorce revolution and the sharp increase in non-marital births. It should be noted, even though this threat has only increased recently, it's considered by many to be the most dangerous threat to society. Author David Blankenhorn of the book Fatherless America states, "Fatherlessness is the most harmful demographic trend of this generation and the leading cause of damage to children, and is the engine driving our most urgent social problems, from poverty to crime to adolescent pregnancy to child abuse to domestic violence." I'd like to share with you a story. Picture it's a lovely spring evening and a mother is staring out her kitchen window. She's watching her son playing catch with his favorite baseball while his older sister is twirling around in her favorite princess gown. You may be thinking to yourself, this is a wonderful and happy picture. However, if you look deeper, you'll see a huge piece of it is missing. The boy is playing catch alone because his best friend isn't around anywhere to be found, while the princess is dancing alone because her king doesn't live in the land where she rules. These children are fatherless, yet these children play without a worry in the world because that is a child's job. It is their mother staring out of the window who does all the worrying. She worries about the next time she'll be asked by her children to explain why they don't have a father, or when her daughter once again asks the question, "When are you going to get me a new dad?" and having to explain to her that picking a new father for her isn't a quick and easy task like going to the store and picking up a gallon of milk. However, these not-so-easy questions and worries will soon turn into child's play. There are much bigger threats for the mother to worry about. The mother thinks about her son's graduation next week. While this will be a happy time, she can't help but wonder, will she be standing at her son's high school graduation 12 years from now? As 71% of children who drop out of high school come from fatherless homes, and children from fatherless homes are 9 times more likely to drop out of high school too. The mother worries if she'll become a grandmother before her daughter is an adult herself, as 70% of all adolescents who become pregnant come from fatherless homes. She also worries if she'll get to enjoy her children's adolescence with them, as 70% of juvenile inmates are raised in fatherless homes. These are just a few of the threats which her children unknowingly will be up against within the next 10 years. It's easy to picture the story as fictional, yet it's very real and it is my life. However, the story can easily be yours. Now picture yourself as the person staring out the window. These could be your children, your niece and nephew, or your grandchildren. Martin Luther King once said, "There comes a time when silence is betrayal. We can no longer sit back in silence against this matter and continue to overlook the effects of fatherlessness has on society and children. We must not accept the popular notion that fathers are insignificant, unnecessary, or at best a bonus in a child's life. As parents, we need to be an example to our children. We must deliberately praise the fathers we know around us. As a community, we must educate our members so they too can be an example and teach future generations. We must campaign for fathers to engage with their children and testify of the countless rewards a father gives his children when he gives them his time and attention. The government needs to promote the importance of fathers and establish laws which prevent fathers from abandoning their children. An initiative called My Brother's Keeper has gained much popularity since it was established 30 years ago. This initiative focuses on creating more pathways for children to be successful with the help from mentors. The world needs similar types of initiatives established like My Brother's Keeper, but with fathers being the mentors to their children, the mentees. In closing, I urge you to get involved. Whether you're single or married, man or woman, become educated and help take a stand to show the important influences fathers have on all of society. Thank you. Okay. Do you guys have any questions?
Yeah, I'm glad I'm not following you, Finley. That was awesome.
Wait. Oh.
Can you hear me, Finley?
Oh, for Lacey
Lacey.
just spoke. That was Lacey's speech, Lori.
Oh, Lacey, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Lacey, I have a question for you.
Sure.
So what do you think extended families can do to help in a situation like that?
I like who? Just like couples that are remarried, or
Well, no, families that don't have a father present in the home. What could like grandparents do to step in and help? Do you have, is there a place for them in helping the children or other extended family members?
yes, I believe that's very important. I know I can speak for personal experience with myself that my parents, especially my stepdad, plays a huge role in my children's life. He is a huge father figure to my son, and they make sure that they have boy time. They read together, almost every single night. Just to have that example. So yes, for people that aren't married or don't have a father, finding a good male figure is vital, and it can be sometimes even better depending on the situation. Sometimes other male figures are better than fathers. It's not there are circumstantial cases. Generally, it's best for a father to be in the picture.
Great, thank you.
I have a question. So I have a friend who is basically a single mother now, but they're not her kids, they're her sister's kids. And the reason why her sister can't have them is because she has a very strong drug problem. And the judge said that they can't be with her. And so my friend is taking care of her or of her kids. But she wanted to put them in the foster system so that they could have a family. But then she was like, no, I would rather raise them myself. So, what would you tell her? What things could I show her to prove to her that a family setting is better than for her, she's a student. She's struggling to find housing, and she's struggling financially to even keep herself up. How could I present a family situation to be better in the foster system?
I think that a lot of it goes with just her bond and her passion to want to raise children. I think so many times we get caught up with thinking that we're not enough, that we're not providing enough, that they don't have enough things, or that we're not loving them enough. But really, we're doing better than what we think we are doing. And I think she's not their biological mom, she's their aunt, but she's been around, she's been in the picture, and children, they need stability, and she's been in the picture, she's been around. And for her, they've already been through enough with losing their mom, and I don't know the situation with the dad, that it would be even more traumatic for them to be put into a foster family, I feel like, at this point. So I feel as long as they've got a roof over their head and they've got food to eat, and they can go to school, that's winning in my books. And I think that she'll provide more love and care for them than what a lot of others can't. Not saying that foster families are not good, there's many great ones out there, but I feel like if it can stay within the immediate or close extended family, that should be the basis first, and then work outward from there.
Awesome, thank you.
So I had a question. I know your topic was fatherlessness, but in a situation where there's only one parent parenting and just some help from the outside, what can a community do to help support that mother that's parenting on her own?
Well, I think we have a lot of programs, and a lot of them are, more focused with mothers, like for instance, like WIC, and a lot of fathers don't even know about that, but they can, try to apply to at least get benefits for their children. So there are some things that society already does, but there could be more, like we've spoke about with other countries providing childcare, like at businesses, and more maternity leave. I think there are, things that, society and our government could, do and needs to do to help mothers, especially single mothers, be better off. And that's a huge concern, because families do best when they have the support of the community and society at large.
My question was kind of similar, but in regards to the father, I was wondering if you came across any resources or helpful websites that provide maybe training on how to be a father who's had divorce happen and how they can influence their child more, or anything that particularly is reaching out to the father who is not a huge part of their child's life because of divorce.
Ooh, you ask a good one, Jody. I didn't come across any websites that popped out that kind of tackle that. The one that I shared, My Brother's Keeper, I know, and now that you say that, I'm thinking I did come across one of those a long time ago where they did have kind of a similar, it was really similar to My Brother's Keeper, where they actually had fathers meet, and they kind of really, I forget what it was. I really wish I knew the website, but they did. They actually worked with fathers. So there are some out there that work with fathers, and they really try to teach them the importance of their presence and working with their children. Unfortunately, I feel like there's not enough, and there's not enough, promotion of these. And so hopefully we'll see more of that in the future.
Yes, I have a question. It's related to what the last two people just mentioned. What can you do to substitute the missing parent presence to adjust the child emotionally? Especially when he or she realizes in the age that she can realize that other children have both parents.
Right. I think this is kind of just a case-by-case scenario. Parents or whoever's caring for children are going to know their children best. They're going to know their temperaments. They're going to know their stress levels, and their maturity level is huge too. What you would say to a 4-year-old asking is going to be different than what you say to a 12-year-old asking. And they're also going to, they're going to ask numerous times. They're not going to just ask one time. So I really think it's kind of just a case by case. I don't think there's just necessarily one thing that I could say to you, like this is the sentence or paragraph to say, and you're magically going to tackle this barrier and everything's going to be grand. I really just think you just have to kind of just assess the personal situation with what is going on with that particular family and the absent parent, and just kind of speak from the heart, but make sure that you're gentle, and just really make sure that you are speaking at a maturity level, that the child understands what you're saying. And sometimes, less is more too. So I wouldn't go into too many details. If they ask you more questions and want to keep going, then yeah, you could, but I would just start with a little and see if that's enough for them at the time. Oh, and I guess you could always say too that you always love them, and that it's not their fault. Okay. Is there any more questions or comments?
That was great.
All right. Thank you.
All right. So in 1970, Governor Ronald Reagan signed the Act for No-Fault Divorce in California. This act meant that if one party had enough of the marriage and was unsatisfied, he or she could terminate the marriage. This led to all 50 states signing similar acts. Divorce rates jumped from 9.2 in 1,000 marriages to 22.6 in 1,000 marriages ending in divorce. Marriage is a social system, and when it fails, there are consequences to its citizens and society. Marriage provides stability. Parents can provide support to their children when they are married. Parents and spouses are more financially secure, and they have more time and attention to give to their children. Their rates for charity and volunteering are higher, and all of this adds to the community and to the strength of the country. My husband comes from a divorced home. He was 12 years old and the oldest boy living at home. His father moved into an apartment, and his mother had to start working outside of the home to provide for them. They depended on outside resources for support and for food. The parents no longer had the means to provide for what their children needed. The support and comfort he once had from his parents was gone. At times, he was left to his own devices and to care for his younger siblings. He did not have the opportunity to develop a relationship with his father. In his young adult life, he spent a lot of time wandering through life without strong direction. He did not get good grades in high school. He had no plan for after graduation or for further education. He was just getting by for a long, long time. He had no guidance from parents because they were preoccupied with other things. And this was all because his parents could not reconcile their differences. Fortunately, he was a lucky one. Some are not so lucky. Some end up acting out, breaking laws, having sex earlier, teenage pregnancies, and dropping out of high school. Is all the trauma that comes from divorce worth it? Divorce does not just affect people that are directly involved. 44% of women that divorced after 2 to 8 years of marriage were below poverty level. A lot of times they needed government assistance to help them get by, which comes from the taxpayer. Around $150 billion are being used to support single-parent families, while only $150 million is being spent to help sustain marriage and reduce divorce. More money needs to be going to support and sustain marriages. There are some states that have seen the benefits of keeping marriages intact. In Georgia, there's a tax credit for engaged couples that choose to attend premarital counseling. There are other states that are using the surplus from the Temporary Assistance for Needy Families, the TANF, to go to support initiatives that support marriage. There are some cities in this country that have signed community marriage covenants, which help strengthen marriage and give couples an opportunity to move past their differences and build a strong marriage, and gives couples, and some of them have seen a decrease in divorce up to 47%. These programs work, and they need to be implemented throughout the country. Another way to preserve marriage is for courts to mandate a time frame before they can proceed with the divorce in which the couple can reconcile by attending counseling and marriage classes. As we start supporting marriages and putting our money where the problem is, we will start seeing more stable families, a decrease in poverty and in crime. Marriage is the foundation of a successful society and should be supported by our communities and our government leaders. Thank you.
Good job.
Anybody have
That's
any
great.
questions? Thank you. Any questions for me?
Yeah, Felly, I have a question for you.
Mhm.
So, for decades, now that half of our marriage end in divorce, and that is only getting worse. But that is if the case with the most facts that the repeated, that's not quite true. And it turns out that divorce rates are actually falling.
Mhm.
So how do you see the divorce rates in the United States nowadays? Do you believe that the divorce rate is increasing, decreasing, or is maintaining the same?
I think we've hit a plateau when it comes to divorce. I think we're plateauing still at a really high number. I don't think that it's still rising. In the 80s, the 70s, 80s, and 90s is when it was really climbing the highest. And that's when we hit the 22.6 in 1,000 marriages divorce rate. But now that it is kind of leveling out. There's not it's kind of even keel here, but it's still a really high number. There's still about 1 million children who are coming from divorced homes every year. And that's still a lot of kids every year, you know. And so I do think that, yes, it's a good thing that it's falling, but I think we can do even better than that.
I have a question.
Mhm.
So I think we've learned that intact families are the best thing for society economically as well. Do you think it would be good to use any taxpayer money to maybe prevent divorce by educational classes and things like that, rather than using taxpayer money after the fact to support programs that try and pick up where the intact family left off? Maybe a shift in where we put our help and money?
So that's a really good question and a really hard question to answer. But I do believe that the money that goes towards to help support single families is really good. But at the same time, when it's $150 billion to support people that have, lost the support of a spouse, to only $150 million to go towards helping prevent divorce and stuff, there is a gap there. I do think that there should be more money going towards those programs that help support marriages. Community classes can start being provided by professionals in the community, like at your local community center. If couples feel like their marriage is suffering, they can go meet with this counselor and take these classes or whatever. I think those are good things to have in the community that not only show, hey, your marriage is important to us as a community, but I do think that it is important that the taxpayer dollar go. I don't know yet that we're at the point that we can take away funds from single family homes, because that just will keep increasing problems. But if we start working on the divorced family, like the preventing divorce, we can see that change, and then we can start shifting the money over.
Right.
I have a question. So you mentioned that your husband is one of the lucky ones.
Mhm.
So what can be implemented for those kids who aren't so lucky, and what can be done with those kids? Like, what programs are there available for them, or what can be done with them to help them?
I think there are a lot of community programs and things. I think that there are a lot that jobs can do for single moms and single dads that have to work to help support them. I also think that, for example, if the divorce is not amicable and the parents are fighting over custody, unfortunately, I think there are times where the courts need to, or a mediator needs to get involved and say, wait, these kids need to start seeing their parents. And unfortunately, my husband's dad remarried really quickly and kind of had his own life started again. And so didn't get to see his dad a ton. And that was really hard. And so I think that encouraging families to stay in close proximity to each other, like parents staying in close proximity so it's easier for their kids to go visit the other parents. I think that's a good thing for courts or mediators or whoever it is, counselors, to do that, because I think that can help the children. There are lots of programs in the communities. Boys and Girls Club can help kids stay out of trouble. Church programs as well. Not just our church has programs like Young Men's and Young Women's, but there's a lot of churches that have programs where children can attend that are going through a divorce. Like, it's almost like a support group that they can go to help them understand what they're feeling is not unusual. A lot of kids feel that way. And so I think that can help them see, okay, I'm not weird feeling this way. And then how do I deal with it?
Awesome, thanks.
Oh, okay. I had a quick question. What role do you think premarital counseling plays in the issue of divorce? And should it be required of couples that are going to get a marriage license? Do you think that would be beneficial to possibly have some legislation in there to help couples before they're married?
So yeah, I touched on that. I don't know that there should be a bunch of laws to stop divorce or whatever, like courts or somebody mandating counseling classes for people trying to get married. I feel like if you want to get married, you're just going to get married. But what I did find was that some states, like Georgia, are offering tax credits. So it's an incentive to go get counseling. So like, oh, we get a tax break of $100 or $200 or whatever it is if we just go attend some classes before we get married. I think that's a really good way. One of the things that I read is it's only for Georgia, it only costs them about $4 million a year to implement that tax credit. And that's a lot less than it would cost to support children and families that come from broken homes and stuff. And so to me, it's worth it to add initiatives to programs like that. Say, hey, we want your marriage to work. Come get some counseling before you come get married. And so I think that's a great way to do that.
Perfect. Thank you.
I have a question, Finley. So it's kind of a little bit similar to Lori's there, because I know that you mentioned that when Anacleto asked the question that we're seeing divorce rates kind of level off or go down. But a lot of that I feel is due to like cohabitation and people not wanting to get married. And then we touched on, the incentives for people that are going to get married. But what would you say, or what do you think should be done? Do you think there should be the same type of initiatives offered for people that are just dating or cohabitating together? I feel like the root of this goes deeper than just before marriage, and a lot of people aren't even considering marriage. And so I don't know if you came across found anything in your research, or if you have any advice as to what you would say or think should be done to work with those who aren't considering marriage.
I would say that because there's a lot of cohabitation. I would say that if a couple decides to cohabitate, I think there should still be some type of incentive to go talk to somebody if they plan on having children in their cohabitation situation. Because, I think a lot of us know the rates for cohabitation, the rates for divorce after cohabitation are really, really high. And so I think people need to be educated about that, because not a lot of people know that. So I think that's one way we can try to educate them in the community. Have classes that say for cohabitating families and bring them in and talk about, cohabitation without it being a trap, but have them say, look, this is what's happening with cohabitation, and maybe we can talk to you. What are your doubts about marriage? How can we help you figure out a good situation for you and your family, like the best situation possible? But other than that, I don't know that there is a ton that we could do legally to force people that are cohabiting to get married. But I would think just community education can be a great help without seeming judgmental or overbearing, just to kind of say, hey, this is what's going on. And we as a community want to make sure that everything works out with you and your significant other. I hope that answers your question.
Yep, thank you.
All right, any more questions?
Before we go on to the next one, can you guys type in your emails?
Oh, yeah.
It didn't show. Sorry. Thank you.
I already typed mine in, so I'll just go ahead and get started. Start my timer. You have to expect that every man out there has been or is addicted to pornography, and if they say they haven't, they're lying. I heard this statement when I was a freshman in college and was talking to someone about pornography for the first time in my life. I always knew what it was, but I come from a sheltered family with only sisters, so this had never been an issue in my home. My parents never bothered to tell me why porn is bad. They just said it was. I, unlike many young teens and adults today, am glad I was never curious enough to know what it is truly about. Because let me tell you, my parents were right. Porn really is bad. Pornography is a growing, living epidemic that has slowly been taking over the world. Its quiet roots, when men would buy X-rated magazines to hide somewhere in the home so that no one would find them, doesn't compare to the blasting sexualized era we now live in, where men, women, boys, and girls participate. Today, we stand together as loving and caring parents, brothers, sisters, and friends to raise awareness and begin the end for this enemy, the new drug. The statement I shared in the beginning raised a lot of questions in my 18-year-old mind, the main one being, what is it about porn that keeps people going back for more? Viewing porn has been proving to act just like any drug addiction does. Fight the New Drug, a non-profit organization fighting against pornography, shares that the reward center in your brain that oversees making you feel pleasure releases a chemical called dopamine, which comes in handy to motivate you to do things that will improve your health, like exercising, but your brain doesn't know the difference between a drug or a real reward. The dopamine will create cravings and new neural pathways that will make you want to view porn more frequently and with increasing degrees of impact. That is why it's so hard for its users to stop watching. It has changed the way their brain works. A study has shown that 93% of boys and 62% of girls are exposed to internet porn before the age of 18. Just imagine the damage that is taken over our youth's brains that are still undergoing major developmental changes. It's teaching them the wrong idea about sex and their own sexuality. It has caused major issues like an increase in aggression, sexual violence, and for adults, it is a leading cause of divorce. The second question I raised was, if pornography is so wrong, then why is it so normal? I have come to realize that we live in a world where we walk down the mall, which is supposed to be a family-friendly center, and stumble ourselves in front of Victoria's Secret stores when models are displayed in intimate apparel, and we consider it normal, maybe even trendy. We live in a world where the number of television sexual scenes has increased, averaging 5 sexual scenes per hour. But most sadly of all, we live in a world where every second, $3,075.64 is being spent on pornography. Of course, the US government has its laws about pornography, but they are certainly not enough to stop this epidemic from spreading. The only way it can be banned is if it shows any kind of explicit depictions of minors. Other than that, the law distinguishes between 2 types of sexual materials. The first is indecent, which is protected under the First Amendment and can be sold or possessed under no penalty. The second is called obscene, which has no protection under the First Amendment, unless you have approved to have it in the privacy of your own home, and no seller or businesses are involved. We have created a norm at which it is okay to display sexuality in every corner. We have let it come into our homes through TV and internet use. We have become desensitized over time with every passing billboard, advertisement, and commercial that we constantly see. And yet we think pornography is only something that we look for in a magazine or implicit movie. Like I said before, my parents didn't bother talking to me about this issue, but you can and you should to your children. Having a strong parent-child relationship is essential for trust to mutually flow. It creates an atmosphere where a child can innocently ask a question and a parent lovingly answers with no reproach. This means that when a child accidentally encounters internet porn, there will be no shame, no guilt felt when wanting to speak to a parent about it. I know it is our desire as parents to teach our children how to reach their potential as productive, hardworking citizens who will eventually become better parents than what we are today. The teacher, it will hinder their development, create selfish and entitled adults, and eventually lead to a broken family. Not a lot of people are aware that pornography has this kind of impact on their daily lives. We are here today, tomorrow, every day for the rest of our lives to raise awareness for this important cause, to educate not only ourselves, but anyone whose life we touch, to help save a marriage, a family, and a home. Don't wait for the epidemic to become a bigger problem. Start now. You can begin a chain reaction that will spread just as far and wide to stop pornography in its tracks. One innocent question and loving answer at a time. Thank you. Does anyone have any questions?
I have a question. So what do you do if you have members of your family or children that you know are having these kind of issues and you want to reach out and get them help? Are there things that you can do specifically without alienating them and just blocking all communications? What would you recommend as the best resource for reaching out to family members?
I think that the best resource is honestly, and it's going to sound super cliche, but it's to show love, because the people who are having the problems, they're not receiving that kind of attention and love in their lives, and that's their outlet. That's where they go to experience it and to get that kind of a high. And so I think that the best way would just to, well, I'm talking this about experience now in my own life. We had to set up a time that we could talk, and that they were prepared to talk about it and we were prepared to talk about them to them too. And it was just an environment like, why is this happening? What is going on? What can we do to help you? And it was a mutual talking thing. And like I said, children who kind of experience this kind of a thing, they are mostly scared to talk about it because they know that their parents are going to be very scared or angry. So if we just show that kind of love and understanding to them and show them that we actually want to help, I think that makes them want to open up and make that change in themselves too.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question. What would you say, because this is such a touchy and sensitive topic, but I feel like there are a lot of children who are in situations where they are not being like properly cared for or watched over, as in regards to having parents or somebody that they could go to that they trust to ask questions or talk about these things. So I guess my question is do you think that there should be some type of like class or program offered? And I don't even know if at a younger, lower level, like such as high school, if that would be too soon or too much. It's kind of like a catch-22, whereas, you know, this is the time where teens are exposed to these things and it's really influential, but at the same time, they're so young and it's so drastic to offer that, or if it should wait until college, or, I mean, what would you say to those that don't, you know, have the opportunity to learn from somebody? Like, what should we do for those to teach them about this prevention?
Yeah, good question. So I actually think, like, if it were up to me and if I could create classes like this, I would start as early as like 8 years old. I don't think that children are too young to know about these things. Of course, you're not going to tell like your 5-year-old, like, you have sex and this is how sex works. But you can definitely make it age appropriate to whatever questions they have, you know, because you have a little 2-year-old coming in being like, where do babies come from? And I think that the most important thing is not to sugarcoat things and not to make it like, well, the storks come and give him to mommy or something, you know? So I would definitely do it that way. I know that my elementary school back in Mexico, they gave us a sex ed class when I was in 4th grade. And I think that was very important for me kind of not to be curious about it because my parents never talked to me about those things. So I kind of just based my understanding off of that. And then, like I said, like when I was in high school in Utah and then came up here, that's when I started learning more about it. And yeah, I hope that answers your question. Does that help? Okay.
That was actually my same question too about implementing education in the schools. I think it's a great thing to do. So I guess maybe just a twist on that question is, do you think there should be some type of national educational program, or that the schools should do that on their own level?
I think that the schools should do it at their own level. I mean, it would be awesome if there was a national program, but a national program at the same time would be very generic and not accustomed to like the own, I guess, demographic of the schools. And so like as a school principal, you're supposed to know the demographic of your school. You're supposed to know who your kids are, who you're trying to reach out to. So if there was an actual like sex ed program for school that someone could specialize and kind of originate in their own little school, that would be awesome, because then they would feel more comfortable with, like, okay, what questions does Johnny have? What questions does Sarah have? Or something like that.
Great, thanks. Good job.
Yeah, thank you.
So, okay, so hopefully my question makes sense. In your, like when you were studying for this, did you find any programs? So say a parent has young children and they're getting to the age where they need to talk about this. Have you found any programs that help parents become educated on the topic? That way they can talk to their kids at home so they're not kind of going in blindly about the topic.
Yeah, so I didn't find any programs specifically, but there are a lot of books. Like I have heard, or I have personally read the one that's called And They Are Not Ashamed. And it's basically like that, teaching a parent how to talk to your children and not be ashamed of talking about sex or pornography to your kids. So I know that there's a lot of books that help, but as far as programs, I could not find one. I know that like a lot of programs exist for when it is already a problem. And so parents are like super worried and then, okay, well, we need to get you help. And that's another thing I kind of want to mention too, is that the child has to be prepared to make the change. The parent can't force the kid to make the change, because then it's not really going to help and it will probably make it worse. So once you have that talk and that kind of trust and respect is shown towards both sides, then I think it's important for the child to be enrolled in that. And I think that the most effective one, to be honest, is the one that the church offers, the 12-step program. And it's awesome. So, yeah. Is there any other questions?
Yes, I have a question. Question it's gonna be, I'm not gonna focus on children, but I would like to emphasize the married couples. So and the neuroscientists are beginning to map the biological subtract of this addiction. How do you see it direct effects on children, on individuals and marriage, taking consideration that a lot of individuals believe that pornography is normal? I'm talking about marriage couples, husband and wife, that one of them are addicted to pornography.
Yeah, well, like I mentioned in my little speech, just being addicted to porn, it makes you, research has shown that it makes you more aggressive, it shows more sexual violence, and it also is a leading cause for divorce. So I think that just for a spouse to be addicted to pornography, it really makes a tear in the marriage, because then the wife feels that neglect, that rejection from the husband, and she doesn't understand why. And once she finds out that it's because of porn, then all the pieces start coming together. And the effects that porn has on the brain is just amazing. It makes you kind of dull to any kind of feelings that are coming in. And so, yeah, that's what I would say, is just that when someone is addicted to porn individually, it makes a drastic change in your character and in your personality. And it can lead you to more aggression and violence, not just within like sexual sections, but also just being more aggressive with your tone of voice or with your words and verbalization and stuff. So, yeah. All right, I think I'm done. Okay, bye.
Okay. Let me just hold on. Okay. Mine is also on pornography. Imagine with me a beautiful sunny day where you and your children have come to enjoy a day at the park. Now imagine what it would be like if everywhere you turned in the park, pornography was staring at you. Picture your child sliding down a slide as they pass by multiple billboards covered in pornographic material. Now, of course, this would never happen at any park. There would be a public outcry demanding that our children were protected from such pornographic material. But is this truly the case? Are our children protected from pornography in public places? The answer is a resounding no. Target, Staples, Best Buy, Subway, and a multiple host of other stores offer free Wi-Fi services. In addition, many cities are beginning to offer free Wi-Fi in public parks. 73% of teens have access to a smartphone, and through their unfiltered free Wi-Fi services, these public businesses make it possible for your child or teen to view pornography outside of your home. However, if you were to walk into any of these businesses and there was an individual who was indecently exposing themselves to the public, that individual would be breaking the law and be punishable by fines and even jail time. Do we as Americans have a double standard here? Our laws have shown that we will not tolerate indecent exposure in public, but currently our children are not protected from indecent exposure that comes from images and videos in the form of pornography. Again, let me reiterate that our children have free access to pornography through many businesses and public services offering free Wi-Fi. Enough is Enough is a nonprofit organization whose goal is to make the internet a safer place for children and families. Through citizen petitions, they have been able to successfully influence companies like McDonald's and Starbucks to add porn-blocking filters to their free Wi-Fi. Perhaps some may ask, why should we even take measures to prevent children from being exposed to pornography? Understanding some of the consequences that come from pornography can help answer this question. Research has shown that exposure to pornography puts one at an increased risk for having difficulties in intimate relationships, committing sexual offenses, a declining valuing of the importance of monogamy and marriage, and a decreased desire to have children. In addition, some of the nation's top divorce attorneys identified that in over 50% of the divorce cases, one spouse had an extremely high pornography problem. Pornography not only affects the marital relationship, it also has negative consequences on the adolescents and children who view it. When children are exposed to pornography, it affects their sexual development, and they may develop ideas that are unrealistic regarding sex and future relationships. It is illegal for children to view pornography, but because of the easy access of it through the internet, many are exposed to it at a younger age than ever before. If a child has a family member who is viewing pornography, that child is at greater risk to come across pornography within their own home. Researchers have identified many risks to children who live in a home where pornography is viewed. This includes less time with a parent who may have a viewing addiction, witnessing their parents fighting over the pornography consumption of one spouse, a greater risk of a child's parents separating or divorcing due to the pornography problem. Perhaps most concerning is that the child is at greater risk of developing their own pornography addiction due to their increased risk of being exposed to pornography in their own home. Thus, pornography has the ability to influence families for generations to come. Clearly, the impact of pornography does not solely affect the individual who is viewing it. Consider how you would feel knowing that your neighbor, pastor, gynecologist, spouse, or even your child's teacher was addicted to pornography. Pornography is a widespread epidemic. With all the negative effects of pornography, what can be done? First, on the individual level, you yourself can pledge to not participate in the consumption of pornography. Some may say that it is their private, personal choice. However, when that choice is being made by millions of people all over the world, it becomes society's problem. Second, within your own family context, you can work to protect your children and family by installing filters on electronic devices and educating them about the dangerous consequences of pornography. On the community level, there are many great websites like Fight the New Drug, which offers programs to help conquer pornography addiction, and public speakers who can come to your community or schools to educate yourself and your community about the dangers of pornography. You can get involved by signing petitions to influence businesses all over the world to have porn-blocking filters on their free Wi-Fi. If pornography started as an individual choice and was able to spread worldwide, then you and I, as individuals, can make different choices that work to overcome the production and viewing of pornography. Together, we can create a ripple effect that helps to save individuals, relationships, families, and society from the detrimental consequences of pornography. Stand up and do your part in fighting back against the pornography epidemic. Are there any questions?
That was really good.
Thanks.
I have a question. So it kind of touches on the last thing that you just spoke about, how if it was that easy to just make a change and start the ripple effect. Do you think that it would be easier to maybe start that if there was some type of like an event or some type of thing, like a lot of times when people do like rallies or walks or type, kind of, and it's one of those, you see like creations on Facebook sometimes where it's like sign in, or a moment of silence, this day, this time type thing. Do you think maybe promoting type, things like that might get more people to jump on board to maybe actually follow through a little bit better or hold themselves more accountable? I'm just kind of trying to think of new ideas of what could be done or ways to promote it and kind of spin it at a different angle, or if something like that's already done.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that there can be things like events, or that would be great because it's going to raise awareness. And the more awareness we raise about the problems, the more threat people will realize it is, and hopefully they'll want to take action. And so that website, Fight the New Drug, it sells like shirts that people can wear, which is like advertising or walking advertisements that are going to help. But any type of public rally or education through the school is going to be really good for the public, because we just need to get it out there and educate ourselves that this is a huge threat.
Yeah, I know that Fight the New Drug does this thing that if you donate enough money, then they will come to your school and do like a rally or like an education thing in your school, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah.
But I had a question, but I just forgot it, so I will be right back.
Okay, I have a quick question. What can communities do when families feel that pornography is not a problem? Are there steps that communities can take to make people aware of the detrimental effects of pornography? Because not everybody believes that it's a big issue. So what can individuals and communities do to help awareness or create awareness to the problem?
Yeah, so I think on the community level, that's hard to get out there. I think a lot of it starts on the individual level to then affect the community. Like I said, that group Enough is Enough. They got enough individuals to sign petitions to then make a difference in their community, to want businesses to not offer Wi-Fi that was not filtered. And so I think individually we start spreading out to then affect. I'm not aware of communities that have a lot of like rallies, like what someone else is talking about. But so I think let's start individually and then branch out.
Perfect, thank you. All right, is that everyone? Do I need to get started?
I think I have one question for you. I think we've kind of covered a lot of things, but so we talked about how you can donate money and get a rally started. As a parent, how could you encourage your child to be brave about talking about this subject? Like, if somebody's on their phone at school and viewing pornography, or like, in what ways as parents, I guess, can we encourage them to be like, no, this is okay for you to kind of stand up for? And I don't know.
Yeah, that's a really good question about how to be brave about it. I think about that shirt. Have you ever seen the shirts that say like "Porn kills love"? Honestly, that would be hard. I think there's a level of brave to wear that, but I think the more we talk about issues, the more acceptable it is, and the more other people are able to talk about it. And so I think as far as helping your children be able to talk about it, if they're able, like Clarissa had suggested, if they're able to talk about it in their own homes in a comfortable manner, then I think that they'll be able to then talk about it with others. But if they're not able to talk about it in their own homes, I think it's going to be more challenging for them to talk with others.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so now I have the question. It came back. So you were talking about how there's like the company that like McDonald's calls and they can put the filters in their free Wi-Fi. Do you think that like if I were to go into somewhere like, I don't know, the mall where there's unrestricted Wi-Fi, could I go and petition for them to implement that too?
Of course.
Like, how would you go about that?
I think any organization, but could have that petition. I'd probably contact like the mall manager. I don't know who you would contact at the mall, but I would look into the mall, and if you're really passionate about it, you could even like set up a booth where it's like sign the petition to get the mall to have, you know, free Wi-Fi, but or not have Victoria's Secret. But a lot of things like that haven't influenced it. Like Enough is Enough. They got I can't remember if it was Cosmetolian or whatever. They had enough petitions to have them be covered up with blockers, you know, so that people weren't exposed by it. And so I think if you feel strongly about something, just start a way to petition it.
Awesome, thank you. Good job, by the way, I loved it.
Yes, quick question. You know, it's a big challenge, you know, to protect our children about this harmful, you know, disease around the world. So, but what we can do, or what can we do in, you know, to secure our own home?
You know, I really like that, and I think that there's one thing that I read was something called about opting in, and I wish this is something that could take place. The concept is basically if you have a cell phone, you have to opt in to be able to access websites that are inappropriate, and to do so, you have to prove that you're 18 years or older. In addition, I think if computers came with the filtering systems already on them, where you could have the freedom to either dismantle them or keep them on, that would also protect on an easier way. I just think it's not easy enough for a lot of people to be able to know how to set up these programs to protect their home. And so I think if some things were changed with phone companies and computers, that they could establish ways already set up to help people, and then that could help in the home. But since there's not, you really got to do your own research. I know that there's one nanny something or other that is really good about filtering, and a lot of them cost money, but yeah, it's worth it. Thanks for your questions.
Okay. Is it my turn? I think so. Okay. Let me just start my timer here. Last Sunday was like most Sundays at my home, a day I look forward to when my adult children arrive for our weekly family dinner. It's also a day when I come face to face with one of the biggest challenges we face as a family, technology and internet addiction. We hurriedly eat together while my 17-year-old hides her quacking cell phone on her lap. Each child quickly returns to checking messages, Snapchats, and emails after dinner. My heart is heavy, wondering how to reconnect with my family, how to talk to the most important people in my life. Mobile phones are fundamentally, mobile devices and the internet are fundamentally changing how families go about their day-to-day lives, doing homework, driving, or having dinner time. Kids and parents feel addicted to their devices, and it's causing daily conflict in homes, and families are becoming increasingly concerned about the consequences. We also know that problematic media can negatively influence children's development in multitasking and causing harm to learning and performance at school. As a society, we all have a responsibility to take media use and addiction seriously, and to make sure parents have information that will help them make smart choices for their family. There are organizations like Common Sense Media that are here to help and provide education. A review of existing studies and research on internet use and technology and addiction concludes that there is much need for concern. In her new book called The Big Disconnect, Protecting Children and Family Relationships in a Digital Age, Catherine Steiner wrote, interviewed children, more than 1,000 children ages 4 to 18 to find out how technology was impacting their relationships and their social and emotional lives. What she discovered was not surprising nor comforting. Technology is becoming a kind of co-parent. Too much screen time is impeding childhood development, and parents' obsession with their devices is harming communication with their children. According to a study on media influence done by the Kaiser Family Foundation, 8 to 18-year-olds spend over 7 hours a day using entertainment media. That's over 50 hours a week when children could be involved with their families, exercising, meeting new friends, talking to family, and negotiating in personal relationships. And it's not only our kids. How many times have we pulled out our cell phones when we're having dinner to check an important email or text? How many times have we sat at a restaurant with our companion and just checked to see who's on our device? How many hours have we spent capturing a moment digitally when we could have experienced it talking face to face? Often parents are left wondering what to do. But we don't have enough time to discuss it or take control over it. Here are some things to do that we can do to address the problem as families. Pay attention, ask questions, monitor the outcome of your choices, and make changes that when you don't like what you see. For example, are you comfortable with the amount of time you and your child spends on devices? If not, have an open discussion and set goals to help implement changes. Are you aware of how much time your child is spending on their device? Is it affecting their mood or their aggressiveness? If so, take charge. At some point, children will need to manage their own social media. In the meantime, families need to take the lead, and parents need to have open discussions and find resources when needed. Thank you.
Yeah, that kind of makes me just feel sad because I completely agree with a lot of the things that you said, and with how you said that people, instead of enjoying the moment, they're too busy trying to capture it on like Instagram or Snapchat or something. And it reminded me of when before the semester started, my husband and I went to Universal Studios, and he was like, okay, you're in charge of taking pictures because you're good at that. And I was like, okay. And he was like, did you take a picture of that, and did you get that? And I was like, can I just have a break and enjoy what I'm looking at? Because we were like in a show and he wanted me to take videos of the show, but I'm like, I just want to look at it. I just want to experience this. So I completely agree with a lot of the things you said. I guess my question is kind of how did people like do it before this time? Because I know that a lot of parents are like, this is how my children kind of wind down, or if they're being fussy at the doctor's office, I just hand them my phone and they're fine. But I don't want to deal with that with my kids, and I want to know kind of like some tips or something that before the time of cell phones and iPods and iPads, like what was the deal back then? How did they manage their kids?
Well, you're kind of talking to my generation. I mean, I remember a time when there were absolutely no phones, and except for the phones on the wall. And so the biggest concern was that the phone would ring during dinner time. But now obviously times have changed, and parents, I think all parents are guilty of being preoccupied with their own phones. And I believe that parents need to walk the walk and set the example and find alternatives for using technology to entertain kids, or for so many other reasons. We need to set the example and have an open discussion, give kids options. Kids actually, I think, and teenagers, if you were to just give them options like go outside and play volleyball, or play a board game, there's so many other things that you can do. But if you just tell a child to turn off their phone, it's usually not going to work. So I think educating ourselves and giving family members options has been what worked for me and what I have found in my reading works. So.
Awesome, thank you.
I have a question, Lori. So it seems like a lot, like you said, the generations are kind of seeing a huge shift, as in now the younger generations, this is kind of all they know, or what they're exposed to, or kind of how the world is going, with things being all ran off of electronics. So I guess my question would be, do you think that, because obviously a lot of those people don't see it as a problem because they don't know any better, and you've kind of touched on things that you can do, which I feel are going to be like a dying trade here. Do you see it in the future almost being like a reversal? Like, well, there'll have to be like classes or things taught, like how to not be like technologically dependent, if that makes sense. I feel like it's going to be a history class of like things that we did that weren't connected to technology. Sorry if that's a little bit confusing.
Yeah, actually, from my reading, I have found that some of the Asian countries are actually passing legislation to keep the internet out of businesses, certain businesses, and to have internet-free zones at colleges and universities. It's just huge. It's such an epidemic, and we're not far behind. And I absolutely think that there's going to be addiction recovery facilities for internet use. But as you mentioned, I think education is going to be the key. That there's actually, I think there will be a time in the near future where schools will have to be implementing policies on technology use. And I think there may be a time when governments get involved with how much media use can be available in schools. And so I do think there's going to have to be things within our community and our schools where it's part of the curriculum. We teach and we give students tools, and we provide resources for those that are suffering from internet addiction. So yeah, I don't think that time is far off.
Thank you.
I have a question. This actually kind of hits personally to home. I've got a couple teenagers, and I monitor their phone use very closely. They come and ask if they can play games on their phone, and I've had a few siblings say that that's over controlling. Do you think there's a balance in how we deal with our children, and when they can and cannot be on their phones?
Well, first of all, I would say good for you. And I don't think that it's overboard at all. In fact, I wish that I had done more of that with my teenage children. I think sometimes parents feel that they're at a disadvantage because they don't know as much about technology as children do. But I think each family needs to find a balance that works for them and not hide from the issues. Like, for example, with my family, seeing how much my children are on their phones and what that is doing to family relationships, I don't think it's too late to have a conversation, but I think parents need to be upfront about the dangers and maybe include family members in the decision making on what rules and criteria they're going to be for technology use in the home. But I think parents do need to take the lead and start the conversation. But as far as implementing rules, I think it is a balancing act, and each family is different. So just don't be afraid to set the rules like you're doing.
Yeah, I love that family and the rules. That's something I'll give a try.
So I have a question. How can you, so I guess it kind of has to do with Jody's question too, and maybe I'm playing devil's advocate here a little bit, but how can you teach them that technology itself isn't bad? Because technology generally is a good thing. I mean, we do our family history online, we do a lot of things, we do our classes online, so those types of things are good things. And I know you mentioned a balancing act, but how can we teach them that there is good technology, but that there's a way, I guess, to use it, and to them not to be afraid to say, well, I have to do all my classes online. How do I tell my mom that I have to do all my classes online? She's going to get mad I'm on the computer. Do you get what I'm trying to say?
Yeah. I really think one of the first things that families can do, parents and children alike, is to maybe keep a technology journal and actually be honest about how much time you're spending on the internet, on social media, on doing homework, and just keep a journal. And if parents will do the same thing and family members, children will do the same thing, that's a really good starting point to know what changes need to be made. And I think so many families are in denial where we feel bad about the amount of time that we're spending on social media, and so we don't want to talk about it. But I think the first step is just keeping track of how much time that we actually spent on doing these different activities, and then again, as a family, set some rules and some boundaries. And I think once children see where their time is going, they might be more open to setting rules. So I think accountability is really huge in that process.
Awesome. Thank you.
I have a question. My question is more about in terms of prevention than the cure, because some parents are not aware of the dangers of the misuse of technologies. Alert or make them aware to set certain limits and control or supervise their children.
Mm-hmm.
Example, I'm living in a community, the immigrant community, and parents, they work hours and hours. They have 3 jobs, and they satisfy when they work and give the kids an electronic device, they're home or keep themselves occupied, but they don't know exactly what the kids are doing.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think so much of that depends on the age of the child. The American Pediatric Association has guidelines for how much they would recommend for each age group. And so again, I think being aware of what your child is doing, phone checks, check and see what sites they're going onto, and there's many parents that are wondering what to do. We haven't grown up with the same technology, and so we feel like we're at a disadvantage. But we need to educate ourselves. We need to know what are the dangers of different sites like Snapchat, and then just don't be afraid to check your children's devices and know where they're going, and of course set up filters where needed. But I really think education is the key. We need to educate ourselves on what's out there. And if we see our child on a certain site, we need to know what that site is. And it does take time. We're all pressured for time. but it's just so critical. And I know with my own children, I could have done so much more with prevention and alleviated a lot of problems in my family. So just trying to be on top of it and taking the time you need to talk to your family and be educated, I think, is the key there.
Thank you.
I guess that's it.
So I think I'm the last. So, right. So I'm here to address. Hold on one second. All right. So the impact of divorce in children. Each year, more than 1 million children in this country are involved in parental divorce. And a lot of these children could be living in a healthy and stable home. Implementation of no-fault divorce. Of marriage impact on family is unfortunately one of the biggest issues that families face in those days. If the children are involved, most of the cases. To be more precise, half of all children in the United States will witness the ending of parents' marriage, according with the U.S. Office of National Statistics. Taking consideration that all the parties involved might be affected socially, emotionally, psychologically for the harmful epidemic. Families contribute to many social problems, including poverty, crime, substance abuse, decline academic standards, of neighborhoods and community. Studies has been published during the 90s found that divorced individuals compared with married individuals experience lower levels of psychological well-being, including lower happiness, symptoms of psychological distress, and poorly self-concept. Compared with the married, divorced individuals are also have more health problems and risk of mortality. A large numbers of studies in the 90s continued to find that children with divorced parents score lower than children with continuous married parents of academic success, psychological adjustment, social competence, and a long terms of health. That divorce increases the likelihood of negative medical, legal, financial, social, physical, and mental for both parents and children. Are not isolated, but in a motion, a downward cycle, behavior, and despair the problems for their own children and future generation of children. Sadly and unfortunately, our of this harmful epidemic. I have to go through this stressful period when my son was 1.5 years old. He does not visible social emotional problem. I have observed that the impact of divorced parents with joint custody can directly affect others. See the two-parent family as the fundamental institution of society, the setting in which adults achieve a sense of meaning, stability, and the setting in which children develop competent and productive citizens. See that has been implemented at state level is the marriage-based, which is a family-focused model. These policies that strengthen marriage and reduce the costly or the main effects of family breakdown. I believe that the government should require rigorous marriage preparation in the marriage license, during which couples take a premarital inventory, the identificational issues, mentor couples who also teach couple education. Thank you.
Good job on your speech. My
I'm
question.
open for questions.
I have a question about how in the church we can teach that sometimes divorce is okay. I know that sounds bad, but we're so anti-divorce that sometimes in situations where it needs to happen, there's such a taboo. I just ask because I have two siblings who were in abusive relationships and they prolonged their marriage because of the taboo that we have in the church. Is there any way in the church that we can spread the word that it's okay when you're in an abusive situation?
Yes, we've been advised by the prophets and general authorities that the divorce should be the last resort. But the family, the couple should not stay in an unhealthy relationship, especially when there is abuse in a relationship. So even the prophets advise us the end of the marriage should be the solution. In a relationship, there's not just verbal or physical abuse, but when there's a lot of emotional distress, which relates to this physical or emotional abuse.
Thanks.
I have a question. What can we do? We've talked a lot about preventative measures, and I think that's really important. But what can we do to help children in the process of a divorce? Are there classes that should be implemented for parents to take after or during a divorce?
Yes, actually, there's a lot of research being done and a lot of studies that they think the mediation is very important. They go through divorce. Are required. The parents should go to the mediation. In the mediation, they involve the kids. Kids will be present. So the mediator will talk with the parents individually, and then with the kids individually together. So it will prepare emotionally and psychologically the children so they can face later on what's going to be the consequences.
That's perfect. Thank you. And I need to apologize, you guys. I need to take off. I have another class. But I just wanted to tell you all you did a fabulous job, and I will meet with you soon.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Sorry, you too. Bye. I have a question for you, Anacleto. Did you provide any policies or programs that are currently being used to help on the situation, or any alternative organizations that you think would be helpful?
There is a lot of organization that will help. You talk about more in terms of emotionally or physically to sustain the family after the divorce?
I just wanted to make sure that I didn't miss anything, if you had mentioned any programs that help prevent.
Oh, to prevent.
Maybe.
The way I mentioned the marriage-based policy. It's been implemented in state level. It's a government policy which is focused more on family, not individual, which is good. The model is very well designed, and it's to strengthen marriage, so it will reduce the divorce rate. So some states like Massachusetts has been implemented. Is not for the it's not for Massachusetts is one of the states that has a lower state. Is one of those. So I think is very effective. If other states implement the marriage-based policy, it will drastically reduce the divorce rate.
Okay. Do you know how long that has been a policy? I'm just wondering because you had mentioned that it's marriage-based, it's couples-based, which you just stated was good that it's not individually based, but we are tending to live in a country that is very individually focused. And so I'm just wondering how successful people have had with that, with it kind of being something that's geared towards something that most people are not normally used to, with wanting to be everything individual, me, and here's this program that's about us. How receptive has it been taken in, or how successful has it been?
Is that when you get married, you become one. So if you want to stay in a healthy and positive marriage relationship, you should work together. If it's one part is trying to go on one way, the other part is going to a different way, of course the relationship is not going to work. But of course, also there's always problems in a marriage. There's no perfect marriage. So these policies or this program family focus, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't directly, or indirectly touch individuals. So what it does, it brings those parents, the couples together and discuss and present them what is the best solution, and also it refers them to and therapists, which nowadays is a little bit better because it's not like a taboo. Because a lot of people think when you refer them to see a family therapist or family counselor, they think, no, I'm not. My marriage is perfect. I know how to solve my marriage. It says that when you sick, you go see a doctor, right? When your car has a problem, you take it to the garage. You don't take your car to a doctor, or when you're sick, to go to the garage to see a mechanic. It's same thing with a marriage. When there's a problem, you should go see a family counselor. So this program pretty much touch base when they have issues, to the right agency to help them strengthen their marriage relationship.
Okay, I have a question with that. You were mentioning how if you're having problems, then you should just go straight to the marriage counselor. And I agree with that to some extent if the problems are very problematic, I guess is the right word I'm looking for. But before you actually go into the marriage counselor, do you think there's anything that, like, as a marriage couple you can do to try and strengthen the marriage before having to take that step to go in to see someone?
I believe you can do, because you know yourself or your partner more than the therapist does. Okay, the therapist is going to use his knowledge. Okay, but you know what might be the problem. Most of the times, you guys know. So, but gave each other an ultimate. If my problem is because my partner spend hours on the phone with a friend, address that. Say, I don't want you to talk hours on the phone because I'm here. I need your presence. I need your attention also. That there's the issues because she doesn't want it. If she doesn't respect me, is because she she doesn't care about it, or she thinks she's superior or whatever. That's a problem. So she needs another person or individual outside of the marriage, so to redirect her. So it depends case by case. So, but I think that was a good question. I think you should try to solve it first. You go home, and then if it's not a solvable, you can go outside looking for help. Because in a marriage, to be honest with you, in a marriage relationship, sometimes is the need that we need just a little tune-up. It's like you listen to radio station. You listen like to your favorite radio station, but it's not tuned. So you hear a lot of noises. You might say this radio is a crap. I'm gonna trash it. I don't want this radio. I'm just little adjustment to radio station perfectly. Sometimes in the marriage relationship it's the same thing. We need a little adjustment. We feel we cannot do it. Someone has to do it for us.
Awesome. That was a really good answer. Thank you so much.
What? What did you say?
I said thank you. That was a really good answer.
Oh, that's all right. Thank you. Mhm. I think we're done.
Lacey, can you put your email up there too? I'm not sure if I see it.
Oh, yeah. Finley put it up top. Can you see it though, or can we type it?
Oh, LM Stewart, that's you?
Yep. Yep.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome, guys. Everybody did a good job.
Yay.
Do you want me to start the broadcast?
Sure.
Yes.